All right, as promised, welcome back, Jeff Cameron Show. It's time to welcome our friend Matt Moscona. Of course, he's the host after further review, weekdays 3 to 6 Central Time there, ESPN, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Alexandria. You'll find him all over the internet, and he's here with us today, and we appreciate that. Matt, how are you, man?
Hey, Jeff, I'm great, man. Great to chat again.
It is great to chat again. I wanted to get a quick update from you just regarding, obviously, the final preparation since we last talked. Brian Kelly decided, obviously, to hold off on announcing the starting quarterback. That's not that unusual. But your thoughts about the depth chart as we've seen some of it posted or speculated on, and any surprises, anything to take note of as we head into this game? I think both of us think it's going to be a game. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I remember our conversation last time that, both defensive lines have an awful lot of success. So we kind of turn our attentions at that point to some other areas, including special teams and also these two quarterbacks. But I guess big picture stuff, Matt, I'll ask you to go wherever you'd like.
Yeah, I think for LSU, they had a really good camp. Maybe most notably is that they stayed healthy. They have not had any significant injury, which is rare. And Brian Kelly talked about not only lauding the nutrition staff, the strength and training staff, their medical staff, but just the way that they approached practice in this camp. So LSU is a very healthy team. I think, like our conversation where we talked about, I think the strength for both teams, defensive line, offensive line, and I believe the place kicking duties are going to be the biggest questions for LSU. Everyone wants to focus on quarterback, but this LSU offensive line, you've got 5 new starters in different spots. You've got a lot of guys who have played before and played at different places, but 5 guys who were not in the spot they were in a year ago, next to the players they were not next to a year ago. That should be a little anxiety inducing if you're LSU. And also notably, guys, they're not going to have John Emery. Who's a former 5-star running back who is going to miss the first 2 games of the season due to a continuation of an academic suspension from a year ago.
Is Noah Cain going to get the bulk of the carries here?
Yeah, I would think Noah Cain. They're going to run 3 guys, and I believe they're all going to play. It's going to be Noah Cain, who's the Penn State transfer, who has honestly, Jeff, looked really good. I don't know that there was a great discernible difference between he and John Emery throughout all the practices we saw. And oddly, Brian Kelly opened practice. Like we got to watch 3 or 4 full practices, including scrimmage sessions, which is bizarre in the modern age of college football, but very much appreciated. But Cain, there's a sophomore, Armani Goodwin, who you're going to see as well. He's bulked up. He's 5'8", but he's about 200 pounds, kind of like a little bowling ball. And there's a former walk-on, Josh Williams, who you'll probably see get some run as well. So they're going to rotate all 3 of those guys. But I really believe, Jeff, if Jaden Daniels is the guy like we assume he's going to be, he's probably going to have to make plays with his feet. And I would not be surprised if Jaden Daniels was LSU's leading rusher in this ballgame.
It's an interesting dilemma that I think both offensive lines will find themselves in, with the strengths of these two teams being the defensive line and both quarterbacks being mobile. I think it's an interesting situation for Jordan Travis, too, an opportunity for him, because I think for Florida State fans and really any national pundits watching, I don't know that either one of these quarterbacks are trusted all that much, at least by the outside perceptions. And really, quite frankly, neither have earned that trust that I've seen. And to me, I think it does come down to the quarterbacks. This is where LSU would have an advantage, though, because of who they're throwing to. Everybody knows about Kayshon Boutte, but talk about the rest of this receiving core, which I said the last time we talked, I think could very well be the best, if not the best, outside of Alabama, maybe the second best in the SEC.
It might be right there rivaling Ohio State with the best in the country. It is undeniably the strength of this team. Look, Kayshon Boutte there's a reason he's on everybody's mock draft as a top, one of maybe the top receiver taken in the draft. For a little bit of perspective, Jeff, last week, if you watch that Nebraska Northwestern game, Trey Palmer was the most targeted receiver in that ball game for Nebraska. He transferred to Nebraska from LSU this past offseason. Mark Whipple, the Nebraska offensive coordinator, was at Pitt last year where they had Jordan Addison, who of course won the Blitnikoff. Mark Whipple compared Trey Palmer to Jordan Addison. They have just stockpiled talent there. Malik Neighbors is a guy who wears number 8. They've moved him into the slot, and he is an explosive cat. Jack Bech got a lot of run last year as a freshman. Jeray Jenkins is a senior who's back as well, big-bodied receiver. They got former 4- and 5-star guys like Brian Thomas and Chris Hilton that are just looking for ways to get on the field. That is like, as if defensive line is LSU's strength on the defensive side, wide receiver undeniably is the strength on the entire team. The question is, do they have a quarterback that can get them the ball, and can the offensive line give the quarterback time to get them the ball?
Is there any one thing beyond the offensive line that you alluded to earlier that if you are looking at it from the other side and you think that Florida State could take advantage of, for our listeners, I'm kind of curious what you think that is. I know you're worried about, or you've mentioned that LSU fans are certainly worried about, maybe worried's not the right word, just don't know what they're going to get out of special teams. Is there another area? Because I look at the secondary and I say there's a lot of guys that have played a lot of football, but not together.
That's fair. So LSU a year ago, their top 3 corners obviously were Derek Stingley, who's now in the NFL, Elias Ricks, who's at Alabama, and Dwight McGlothern, who is now at Arkansas. And Cordell Flott was their nickel. He's also in the NFL. Now, they've got their 2 starting safeties back with Major Burns and Jay Ward. So they're really good, deep, and talented at safety. Corner is a giant question. Like you mentioned, you've got – I mean, like I can run through names, but Jarek Bernard Converse was all Big 12 at Oklahoma State last year. He started 47 consecutive games in the Big 12. But this will be his first taste at LSU. Mekhi Gardner is a big-bodied, long cornerback who transferred in from Nichols. They like him a lot. They got a McNeese transfer named Colby Richardson, who put on about 20 pounds. And they think he's a great athlete and really can run. They've got all of their corners that they're going to play are either 5th or 6th year guys. So veteran guys, a lot of experience, but none of them are as talented as the guys that were here a year ago.
I'm kind of curious, Matt. I'll be there, obviously, covering this game. I always enjoy interacting with LSU fans. I've done it in baseball, done it out at the College World Series, and I've done it for football. This is a great fan base. It's one of the best in all of sports because of the embracing of the moment, of the food, the culture, the music, everything, the passion, obviously. Are LSU fans of the mindset that this is a cakewalk? FSU's been bad. I mean, there's been no way around it. It's been a bad program for the last 5 years. I bring it up because Florida State fans listening, making the trip to New Orleans, they're cautiously optimistic that this is a better season in the lane and wait for Florida State. But a lot of it kind of hinges in their mind on what does Florida State look like against LSU? My guess, you tell me if I'm wrong, my guess is LSU fans are bullish that it's going to be a much better season because of what you've alluded to. There's a lot of talent. It was a mess last year in the coaching staff, but that seems to be remedied. LSU fans bullish about what they think is going to happen on Sunday night?
Yeah, Jeff, I guess it kind of depends on what fans you ask. I mean, listen, you that's like any fan base, right? I mean, you can find LSU fans who are going to tell you they think it's going to be 48-17. I don't think that's a consensus. I think what you have with this LSU fan base right now is I think LSU fans believe LSU will win this game. Probably 1-85, a little more talented team, and you can't underestimate also the venue. Playing in LSU's had a ton of success. They're 7-1 the last 8 games in the Superdome. The only loss was the national championship loss to Alabama. That's going to be a home game for LSU. So you're going to have a crowd advantage. There's a lot of reasons that LSU fans think their team will win this game. I don't know that I would say cakewalk, though, because I think this fan base over the last 2 years has seen its program face some staunch realities about what it's like to maintain that competitive level that LSU's had for 20 years. I mean, Jeff, you know this better than me. It's not that dissimilar from Florida State, where you had this incredible run for the better part of 2 decades, and then maybe a bad coaching hire, a decision here or there, and it gets bumpy, and finding your way back to the top. So I think if you're asking, LSU fans are confident they're going to win the game, but realistically, LSU also I think recognizes that there's things that are gigantic question marks that are going to provide speed bumps on this season. We mentioned the offensive line. You're replacing every one of your specialists. You brought in more transfer players than any school in America this offseason. You've got 9 of your 10 coaches turned over, all your support staff, new strength and conditioning staff for the first time in 20 years. I mean, there's a lot of change. It is naive to think that you're just gonna catch stride and sprint from jump. So this season, there's going to be a lot of feeling out in the Brian Kelly era. And there's going to be some things that go really, really well for this team. And there's probably going to be some head scratching moments as well. But if you consider coaching, venue, talent, yeah, I think LSU rightfully is favored in this game. But I think also, Jeff, that I think the spread in this game is fair also because of all the questions. I don't know how either fan base can assume that they're just going to go in and walk in this game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of unknowns. I think that's well said, Matt. And I appreciate you lending some insight, shedding some light on what LSU is coming out of camp. Obviously, I think LSU is a bit of a mystery to a lot of people because that's a team that if it gels and gels quickly, could be the surprise of the West, certainly, and could be a lot better team than they were projected to be in the preseason. And at the same time, how quickly does it happen? Florida State fans are hoping not too quickly. Enjoy the game, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That's Matt Moscona. Upon further review, you can hear him there in Baton Rouge, New Orleans as well, throughout the state, obviously, as he is with ESPN in Louisiana and does a great job of covering the Tigers and the Saints and everything else to do with sports. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. We'll bring in Michael Langston in just a moment, get an idea on the recruiting impact this game may have for Florida State, obviously, and take a look moving forward before their trek over to Louisville following this game.